In the stillness of this hour, everything is quiet. Darkness stretches out like a veil over the world, and we find ourselves alone with our thoughts. It is a gentle solitude, yet within it stirs a profound question. Why are we here? Under the silent sky, existence itself feels like a mysterious burden. We awaken to a world that did not ask for us, a life thrown into motion without clear purpose. In this calm darkness we contemplate existentialism, the sense that our existence comes first before any meaning or essence. No script was handed to us at birth. We must write it ourselves, line by line, choice by choice. And in the midnight hush, that freedom feels both empowering and terrifying. There is a faint sigh in the wind, as if the void itself whispers, "You are free." Free to become anything, free to choose your path. Yet this freedom is a weight as much as a gift. With no predefined purpose, we carry the responsibility to shape meaning in an indifferent universe. The French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre spoke of being condemned to be free. Condemned, because we have no choice but to choose, no escape from the burden of our own liberty. In the depths of night we sense this truth keenly. There are no guiding stars of fate, only the open sky, and it is up to us to navigate by whatever light we can find within. But what if there is no light at all? Above us the cosmos spreads silent and cold. We ask the stars for answers, and hear nothing but our own heartbeats. This is the core of absurdism, the conflict between our search for meaning and the universe's uncanny silence. We long for the world to make sense, to have some reason or rhyme. We reach out for guidance, in religion, in philosophy, in the patterns of the heavens, yet nothing definitive ever answers back. The night remains quiet. The stars do not reveal our fate. This mismatch, this dissonance between our yearning and reality's indifference, is the absurd. Consider the image of a lone figure pushing a boulder up a hill, only for it to roll back down each time. The myth of Sisyphus. His toil is eternal and pointless, a cruel joke of the gods. Yet is it so different from our own daily struggles? We rise each day to perform tasks that often feel repetitive or devoid of ultimate meaning. We pour our sweat and hopes into ambitions, knowing that one day time will erase all that we have done. And still, like Sisyphus, we persist. Why? Perhaps because in the struggle itself we find a kind of purpose, or perhaps because we simply must. Alone in the dark, we recognize ourselves in Sisyphus. We become aware of the absurdity of it all, how we crave meaning in the universe that offers none by default. A gentle despair may creep in at this realization. It can feel like standing on the edge of a great abyss, peering into emptiness. If life has no inherent meaning, if the cosmos is truly silent and indifferent, then what is the point of all our striving? A cold breeze through the trees might be the only reply. In moments like this, nihilism beckons, the belief that perhaps there is no point at all, no meaning, nothing that truly matters in the end. We resist that pull into nothingness as best we can. The absurd condition does not necessarily doom us to despair, some argue. We can instead choose defiance. We can shake our fist at the void and determine to live anyway, to live authentically by our own lights. But here, in the hush of this hour, such defiance feels distant. More immediate is the raw confrontation with emptiness. We are fragile creatures aching for purpose, and the night offers only silence. Yet within that silence our freedom remains. We might create meaning as one paints colours onto a blank canvas. Perhaps the very lack of inherent purpose is what grants us the power, and the burden, to shape our own. That is the existential challenge, to stand face to face with the void and not look away, to accept that nothing is preordained, and then to affirm life, regardless. In the still dark, one might whisper a personal vow. I will give my life the meaning it lacks. Even if the universe never tells us why we are here, even if no destiny awaits, we can choose a path and call it worthy. This is a quiet, rebellious act, a small, trembling creation in an uncaring cosmos. We cannot be sure it truly matters, but perhaps it matters to us, and that must suffice. Still, doubt lingers. When our little lantern of hope flickers, darkness encroaches again. One could easily slip into despair. At times we might even question whether life is worth living at all. Such a stark question hangs in the air of this midnight meditation. But we are not ready to surrender. Not yet. Instead, we continue our vigil, gazing into the cosmic emptiness and hoping to find some reflection of ourselves. Perhaps meaning is not something hidden in the stars, but something we forge within our own souls. If the universe is silent, maybe we must become the voice that answers. It is a heavy responsibility, but also a strangely empowering one. We decide what this all means, if anything. What a strange situation to be in. On one hand, it is terrifying. There is no guarantee that any choice is right or wrong. On the other hand, it is liberating. We are not bound by any predestined role. We can become authors of our own life's novel. But every author knows the blank page can be intimidating. The emptiness of meaning is like a blank page at a cosmic scale. We stare at it, pen trembling in hand, heart full of uncertainty. Above, an infinity of stars. Below, the sleeping world. Inside, a longing for direction. We stand at a crossroads with no signposts. Perhaps this is why so many have imagined gods or destinies, anything to fill that void of guidance. Yet here, in this thoughtful darkness, we admit we do not hear any guiding voice from beyond. We hear only our own mind echoing back to us. Is that enough? In that solitude a realization dawns. No divine law or cosmic judge holds sway over us. No destiny decides our deeds. We alone must bear the weight of our choices. This is existentialism's heavy gift. Radical freedom paired with radical responsibility. Under the midnight sky we feel both in our bones. A quiet resolve begins to form. Maybe no one is watching us. Maybe nothing is ordained. But we will carry on. We will live. We will find our way through the dark, because what else is there to do? The only alternative is to lie down and surrender to the emptiness. And something in us refuses to do that. Call it will. Call it stubbornness. Call it hope. It keeps us moving. Thus, life, absurd as it may be, goes on. We may never uncover a grand design, but perhaps we can learn to live without one. We can learn to embrace the night, even the void, as a companion rather than an enemy. After all, the void is honest. It promises nothing. It lies not. In its stark silence we find a kind of truth, however bleak. The truth that whatever meaning exists must come from us. We have travelled in our mind from confusion to despair and back to a fragile resolve. The absurd still looms, unyielding, like a black mountain on the horizon. We acknowledge it, the absurdity of seeking meaning in a meaningless expanse, yet we do not turn away. We will climb that mountain each day, like Sisyphus with his boulder, aware of the futility, but determined to find meaning in each step. The darkness remains, but somehow it feels a little less hostile now. It is simply the backdrop for our journey. The void is vast and uncaring, yes, but it is also peaceful in its neutrality. In this gentle quiet, we have faced the possibility that life has no preset meaning, and we have not looked away. That in itself is a small victory. This is the beginning of our hour of the void, a time to explore the deepest questions without fear. We take a slow, deep breath. The journey is just starting. The night is patient. And so we continue onward, deeper into reflection, carrying our flicker of resolve like a candle as we step into the next chamber of darkness. Section 2. We have grappled with meaning, but another spectre rises in the darkness. The question of morality. In a universe with no obvious rhyme or reason, what becomes of right and wrong? If life has no inherent purpose, does it have any inherent values? Or are all values merely human inventions? In the quiet gloom, we consider the possibility of ethical nihilism, the unsettling idea that, just as life may hold no ultimate meaning, it may hold no ultimate morality either. Perhaps, in the cold eyes of the cosmos, there is no absolute good or evil. Actions simply are, like the drifting of stars or the falling of leaves, without moral weight except for what we humans ascribe to them. This thought sends a chill through us. We have long cherished notions of justice, of virtue and sin. Yet here, under indifferent skies, we ask, could it be that concepts of right and wrong are only as real as fairy tales? Comforting stories to guide us, but stories nonetheless. Without some divine command or universal law behind it all, everything might be permissible. This is moral relativism in its extreme form. The view that what is good or evil depends entirely on perspective or culture, with nothing objectively true across all contexts. In one age or society, a deed is celebrated as virtuous. In another, that same deed is reviled. If morality is not absolute, then we walk a tightrope over chaos with no net of certainty below. Throughout history, what one society hails as noble, another condemns as wicked. A practice like human sacrifice was holy ritual to some ancient peoples, yet utter abomination to others. Acts once deemed virtuous, or vicious, can reverse their moral colours with time and place. Human tribes have worn their moral codes like costumes, changing with time and place. Perhaps all along, morality has been more a matter of social convention or survival than any eternal truth. And yet, even if moral rules are human-made, does it follow that nothing matters? We feel an instinct to recoil from nihilism, to insist that some things are truly wrong, truly evil, no matter what the universe says. The suffering of an innocent and cruelty for its own sake, surely these have a weight beyond opinion. As this thought surfaces, we confront the age-old problem of evil. If there is any justice in reality, any guiding goodness, why do such cruelties exist? Why do the good suffer while the wicked prosper, and so much pain seems to have no reason? In religious terms, this question is known as theodicy, the dilemma of reconciling a benevolent, omnipotent deity with the existence of evil and suffering. If a loving God made the world, why is the world so often awash in tears and blood? For those without a belief in God, the question shifts. How do we make sense of evil in a godless world? Perhaps we do not make sense of it at all. Perhaps it simply is, as natural as a storm or a supernova. Lightning strikes a tree and burns a nest of baby birds. A predator catches a fawn in the tall grass. Is that evil, or just nature? And when humans inflict pain on one another, is that a moral outrage in the fabric of the universe, or only in the heart of the beholder? These questions press on the soul. In the darkness, we recall scenes of suffering, an innocent harmed by cruelty, a war's devastation. Our heart wants to cry out that these things are wrong. Perhaps that cry is where morality truly lives, not in the stars or in some objective law, but in our own empathy and outrage. Yet what a fragile foundation that is, swayed by emotion and upbringing. If the cosmos has no inherent ethic, then the only justice is what we create among ourselves. It feels both empowering and terrifying. On one hand, it means evil is not some supernatural force. It arises from choices, and in principle, something we might mitigate through understanding and compassion. On the other hand, it means there is no guarantee of justice. The wicked may flourish, and the good may suffer, without any cosmic retribution. Right and wrong might be human dreams we project onto an uncaring void. We sigh. What are we to do with this realization? If all values are relative, and the universe permits anything, how shall we live? One tempting response is cynicism, to decide that since nothing is objectively wrong, one might as well do whatever brings personal satisfaction. But even that thought rings hollow, for we cannot so easily shed the empathy and conscience woven into us. We still feel that some actions are noble and others are base. We still admire selflessness and recoil at cruelty, even if we suspect these reactions are, at root, subjective. Perhaps, then, we must live as if there were meaning and morality, even when we suspect there is none written into the stars. This may be a kind of brave pretense, or perhaps it is a profound creative act, to bring into the world values that are not found in nature. If truly everything is permitted, then we must become the authors of our own code, deciding what we will hold ourselves to, what we will deem right and wrong in our brief time here. Yet a nagging voice suggests that behind even our noblest acts lies nothing but self-interest. This is the suspicion of psychological egoism. Do we help others because we truly care, or because doing so makes us feel virtuous, or relieves our guilt? Do we champion honesty for truth's sake, or because we pride ourselves on being honest? It is a disquieting suggestion. We like to think of ourselves as capable of genuine kindness, but in the silence of introspection, we examine our motives under a cold, clear light. When we peel back the layers of our actions, how often do we find the ego at the core? Perhaps more often than we'd wish. The philanthropist gives generously, but gains admiration, or a warm glow of self-satisfaction in return. The parent devotes care and sacrifice to a child, yet the child is their own, flesh of their flesh, an extension of self and legacy. Our mind wanders through these examples, searching for one truly selfless deed, and we come up troubled. Even love, that purest of virtues, can be seen as something we offer because those we love bring us joy and completion. Are we all, at the core, just chasing our own desires, even when we appear to deny them? If so, then each person might be an island of ego, the center of their own universe, unable to fully put another's needs above their own, except when it also serves something within themselves. This realization, or accusation, can feel lonely. This notion is bleak, yet disturbingly plausible. The heart protests. Surely empathy is real. Surely love can transcend selfishness. And likely it can. Perhaps psychological egoism paints too cynical a picture. But in this hour of honesty, we allow ourselves to entertain even the darkest interpretations of human nature. If each of us is guided by self-interest above all, it would explain much of our history's darkness. Greed, violence, betrayal. These could be simply egoism unmasked. Individuals pursuing their wants with no pretense of higher principle. And what of our kinder acts? Perhaps they too are egoism in disguise, restrained by social expectation, or enlightened calculation that helping others benefits us in the end. A bitter thought arises. Maybe egoism is the closest thing to a natural law of human behavior. It's not a flattering idea, but here in the stillness we confront it. If the stars hold no morals, and every creature ultimately fends for itself, perhaps we humans are no exception. Our grand ethical ideals might be but fragile agreements to coexist, easily broken when individual desire grows too hungry. We sit with this possibility. At first it seems to invite despair. If we are all prisoners of our own egos, can there be any real goodness? But then, a subtle shift of thought. If we cannot rely on any cosmic judge, if even altruism must be a deliberate choice rather than instinct, then the responsibility to choose goodness lies with us alone. Knowing our own tendency toward selfishness, we might strive against it consciously, if only to prove that we can. In a strange way, acknowledging our ego-driven nature could be the first step toward tempering it. For now, we acknowledge this shadow side of humanity, one more uncomfortable truth on our journey, flickering like a lone star in the void. In the quiet, we begin to question not just individuals, but humanity as a whole. If our species is driven largely by ego and capable of so much harm, what is our place in the cosmos? We have peered into the human soul and found it conflicted, perhaps fundamentally self-serving. A new perspective emerges. What if humanity itself is not the noble hero of this story, but an unwitting villain, or at best, a minor character at best? The thought opens a door into a deeper darkness, a realm where we doubt the worth of humankind. We prepare to step through that door, carrying the weight of these moral uncertainties with us. Section 3. We step through that door of doubt, and find ourselves looking at humanity from a cold distance. This is the cursory view, a starkly anti-humanist perspective. From a high vantage, say, the indifferent eye of a distant star, humankind might appear as nothing special at all. Just one species among millions,
scurrying on the surface of a small planet, driven by ego and appetite. In this cursory glance, all our dramas, our wars and triumphs, blur into insignificant noise. Our vaunted intelligence becomes just another survival trick. Our civilizations no more enduring than anthills before the tide. To a being that has watched eons unfold, our entire history would flash by like a spark, scarcely brighter than a firefly's glow. In cosmic time, humanity's existence is but a brief blink, easily missed. An uncomfortable question arises in this darkness. What if humanity is not a pinnacle, but perhaps a problem? In the shadow of this thought, a kind of cosmic cynicism takes shape. If we are as flawed and self-serving as we feared, maybe the universe would lose little without us. Some have even imagined a world better without human beings, a sentiment at the extreme edge of environmental philosophy known as deep ecology. According to deep ecology, in its most radical form, humans have no exalted status above other life. We are merely one strand in Earth's web, and not a particularly beneficial one. Our existence, especially in vast numbers with voracious technology, has upset the balance of the living world. We conquer forests and rivers, extinguish species, and blanket the skies with smoke. In the name of our advancement, we have scarred the face of the planet. To the deep ecologist, this is a blasphemy against life itself. What would it mean to truly value nature, not as a resource for humans, but for its own sake? It might mean radically humbling ourselves, even accepting that the human presence should be greatly diminished, or in the most extreme imagining, removed entirely, to let the biosphere heal. It is a daunting, almost unthinkable proposal, that the absence of our noisy civilization could be a gift to the silent forests and the deep seas. Extreme voices in this vein have likened humanity to a kind of infection or cancer that the earth must survive. Others use gentler metaphors, seeing humanity as a youthful folly that must learn its place or perish. Sitting with this idea, we feel a mix of guilt and defensiveness. We are human, after all. How can we embrace a view that casts us in such a negative light? Yet there is a harsh resonance in it when we recall the harm our species has done. Perhaps this planet, in its ancient cycles, would indeed flourish if we were not constantly tipping the scales. The thought is painful. To imagine that our greatest contribution to Earth might be our absence. And yet, in this hour of dark contemplation, we do not shy away from even this. One can almost picture it. Great cities fallen, quiet and overgrown. The works of centuries slowly reclaimed by moss and root. Forests spread where highways once cut through. Rivers run clear where factories once stood. And the night sky glitters unchallenged by our lights. In that vision, Earth breathes freely again. A world healing in the absence of its most troublesome children.
As we toy with such drastic visions, another unsettling idea slips in. What if none of this is even real? What if humanity's rise and possible fall, our cities and our extinctions, are all just part of an elaborate design, a program running its course? This is the simulation hypothesis taken to an extreme. It posits that our reality might be an artificial construct, perhaps created by intelligences far beyond us, perhaps even by our own distant descendants, as a grand experiment. In this scenario, every tree and mountain, every laugh and every tear could be lines of code executing in some cosmic computer. our entire history might be nothing more than a scenario playing out on someone else's screen. Perhaps those odd moments of déjà vu or inexplicable coincidence in life are tiny glitches in the code, brief flickers where the facade of reality shows its artificial seams. Contemplating this possibility, we feel the ground of reality wobble beneath us. The simulation idea is not presented here as mere science fiction, but as a genuine philosophical proposal, that the universe we perceive is not the ultimate reality. If true, it would mean that all our struggles, even our moral quests and ecological crises, are happening in a kind of contained story, possibly observed by unseen audiences, perhaps like scientists coolly observing an experiment, or simply unfolding automatically. For all we know, our simulators might watch impassively, or perhaps no one is watching, and the program runs itself. How does one find meaning under that prospect? Perhaps the meaning is pre-written by the program, or perhaps meaning becomes irrelevant in a world where real is a relative term. If we truly were characters in a simulation, it raises a chilling thought about control and freedom. Are we making choices, or are we following a script? In theory, an extreme simulation could have every event predetermined by code. Even our feeling that we are thinking freely right now might be part of the program. This leads us into the arms of fatalism, the belief that everything that happens is fated, inevitable, beyond our control. Fatalism can emerge with or without the simulation idea. Even in a real universe, some suspect that every outcome is fixed by initial conditions, by destiny or divine plan, leaving no room to change what will be. Sinking into fatalistic thought, we picture life as a great wheel turning along a track laid out long ago. The future is already contained in the past, like an oak within an acorn. To ancient poets, fate was a mighty force, perhaps 3 goddesses spinning and cutting the threads of each life, or a book of destiny penned by the gods. Today we might speak of the unyielding laws of physics, or the fixed algorithms of a cosmic program instead. Whatever the image, the result is the same. Our path is set from the start. In such a view, our sense of making choices is a kind illusion. We go through the motions, but whatever will be, will be. There is a strange peace in this notion, as well as despair. Peace because if all is fated, perhaps we can let go of worry. Nothing we do can alter the inevitable flow of events. Despair because it robs us of hope that we might shape our own story. Why strive if success or failure has been decided since the dawn of time? Why judge if even our faults were written into our nature from the start? In the dark quiet, fatalism wraps around us like a heavy blanket. One part of us resists. It is hard to accept that we are merely passengers on a preordained ride, that our will counts for nothing. And yet, another part of us is tempted to surrender to it, to say, so be it. Perhaps we are tired of resisting the currents of life. Perhaps there is comfort in imagining that a greater plan, or mechanism, carries us along, and we need only play our part. After all, even the stars trace paths laid down by gravity. Why should we humans be exempt from the clockwork of the cosmos? Under the spell of fatalism, the universe feels eerily calm and indifferent. All things unfold, and we, with our fears and desires, are just small eddies in a predestined stream. If we accept this, it could numb the sharp edge of both pain and joy. for everything simply is, and could not have been otherwise. But such numb acceptance is its own kind of void. As we stare ahead into what seems like a fixed future, a curious thought beckons from deep within. If everything is truly fated, then who are we really? Are we just characters in a story written by someone or something else? The more we doubt the reality outside us, the more we are pushed inward, toward the only thing we can be sure of, the existence of our own consciousness in this very moment. With the external world either devalued, endangered, or possibly illusory, we find ourselves drawn into the last refuge, the self. In the next hush of our meditation, we turn inward, questioning whether anything outside our mind can be known to exist at all. Section 4. After all these cosmic uncertainties, we turn inward at last, toward the one thing that seems indisputable, our own conscious mind. Having questioned the very fabric of reality and grown disillusioned with externals, we seek shelter in the solitary certainty of our own thought. A peculiar idea takes hold. What if nothing exists outside of my own consciousness? This is the eerie whisper of solipsism, the notion that only the self is truly real, and all others, all the world out there, could be mere phantoms of thought. In the silence of this meditation, the idea does not seem entirely absurd. How do we know, truly know, that anything exists apart from our mind's experience of it? One philosopher famously concluded that the only certainty was his own thinking self. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Everything beyond that could, in principle, be an elaborate illusion. We perceive the warmth of the sun, the sound of wind in the trees, the voices of those we love, but these are all sensations within our consciousness. They feel real, yes, but dreams and visions feel real too until we wake. What if, in some ultimate sense, we never truly wake from the dream of perception? Solipsism wraps us in a strange loneliness. If only I exist, then the universe becomes a kind of mirror, reflecting my own mind back at me. Other people become characters in a story I am telling myself. The stars above become the painted ceiling of my private theatre. It is a deeply disconcerting thought, for it leaves one utterly alone, the sole inhabitant of a universe-sized echo chamber. Every conversation I have ever had would, in truth, be a conversation with myself. Every face I have loved or feared, merely a mask of my own psyche. In such a world, love and friendship, conflict and reconciliation, all of it would play out in the theatre of one mind, mine alone. It is a scenario as terrifying as it is lonely. And yet, can I refute it with absolute certainty? I cannot step outside my own mind to check. Philosophers have long spun hypotheticals of this kind. Perhaps I am just a brain floating in a vat, fed electrical impulses to create the illusion of a world, or the plaything of a mischievous spirit presenting a false reality. How would I ever know? The truth could be totally other than what my senses report, and I would be none the wiser. Perhaps we recoil from such extreme solipsism, insisting that an external reality must exist. Very well, let us grant that there is a world beyond our ego. Even then, how much of that world is the way we think it is? We find ourselves entertaining anti-realism, the radical idea that reality as we know it is not a fixed, mind-independent thing at all. Instead, what we call reality might be largely a construct of our perceptions, language, and conceptual schemes. Our mind filters and colours whatever is out there to the point that we never grasp any objective truth, if it even exists. As the philosopher Kant suggested, we cannot know the thing in itself, the world in its independent reality, only the appearances shaped by our senses and mind. Even our own senses show us only a sliver of what might be. A bee perceives ultraviolet patterns on a flower that we cannot. A bat navigates by echolocation through a world of sound impressions. Their realities differ vastly from ours. Which is the true world? Perhaps none of them, or all of them. Reality, then, could be in the eye or ear of the beholder. If this is so, then solid ground disappears. We are left with a hall of shifting mirrors, where one version of the world is as valid or as empty as the next, depending on one's viewpoint. Different frameworks yield different truths. For one culture, the land itself may be alive with spirits. For another, it's inert matter. One person finds the hand of God in every sunrise, while another sees only the laws of physics. Whose reality is the reality? There may be no single privileged perspective that can claim the title of ultimate truth. All the so-called solid truths and grand narratives dissolve. We are left with a patchwork of perspectives, none ultimate. It is a vision of reality that some would call postmodern, fragmented, multifaceted, and without a single ground to stand on. And in this landscape, even our language, the very tool with which we attempt to carve out meaning, begins to fracture. Words that once seemed solid turn ambiguous and slippery, mere symbols chasing a reality that forever outruns them. Facing this blur of uncertainties, the possibly illusory nature of the world, the impossibility of total certainty, one path forward is to focus on the only thing we might control: ourselves. Here we encounter Stoicism, an ancient philosophy of inner fortitude, pushed to its extreme. The Stoics taught that while we cannot command external events, we can command our own attitudes and actions. In the face of chaos, one can choose virtue and acceptance. To the Stoics, virtue, living in harmony with nature and reason, was the only true good. All external fortunes were ultimately beyond our control, and thus not truly ours to mourn or to celebrate. Take this idea to its furthest reach, and you envision a person of almost superhuman composure. The world could be falling to ruin, and yet they remain unmoved, serene in the knowledge that they control only themselves. This is the ideal of Stoicism, especially in its most austere interpretation. Joy and sorrow, fortune and misfortune, these become impressions to acknowledge, but not to cling to. The extreme Stoic cultivates an indifference to externals so complete that even pain or death do not shake the inner calm. To such a sage, death is not evil or to be railed against. It is merely one more phenomenon beyond us, to be met with equanimity, like a sunset at the end of a long day. Such absolute equanimity carries a certain beauty, a promise of invulnerability to the turmoil of life. Imagine greeting every disaster with a gentle nod, every loss with a gentle release, a heart unbroken, because it has hardened itself into unshakable resolve. In a way, it is a peace, a quiet harbour within that no storm can touch. But it is a cold and wind-swept peace. To feel neither intense joy nor deep sorrow, to hold the world at a distance for the sake of one's own serenity, this is a double-edged sword. It saves us from suffering, perhaps, but at the cost of a certain emptiness. If one refuses to feel pain deeply, can one feel love deeply either? In becoming invulnerable, do we also lose something precious? An extreme Stoic might live like a monk of the soul, detached from the passions that make us most human. Such safety from suffering comes at a price, a dulling of life's vibrant colours. And yet, after so much despair and confusion, even a cold peace can seem welcome. There is something enticing about the idea of being untouchable by fate, of finding clarity in controlling only what is within us. When the external world offers no reliable truth or comfort, tending the inner garden of the self is a rational refuge. We breathe slowly, imagining ourselves as a pillar of calm amid a swirling world. Let the winds of circumstance rage. We will not be swept away. For a moment, we rest in this thought, in the faint light of Stoic resolve. But beyond the walls of our inner citadel, the greater universe still moves in patterns we cannot control. Whether we see the world as an illusion or simply accept our limits within it, the stars will continue to burn, and one day they too will gutter out, the planets to turn, and time to advance. In the end, even the hardest fortress of self cannot hold back the cosmic tides of change. As we hold our quiet pose of acceptance, we begin to sense something vast and inevitable looming beyond the self. The distant rumble of forces that shape existence on the grandest scale. The very fabric of the cosmos is shifting, and with it comes the chill wind of entropy, a reminder that all things, in time, must decay and fade, even the hardest stone or the brightest star. Section 5. The quiet within does not change the fate of the stars. Beyond our inner refuge, the universe continues toward its own destiny. All around us we feel the slow but relentless march of entropy, the cosmic unraveling of order. This is the law that every star and every living cell must obey. Over time, energy disperses, structures decay. The shining suns burn through their fuel and eventually sputter out. The galaxies themselves drift into darkness. In our mind's eye, we speed up time. Stars explode and fizzle into cinders. Galaxies spread thin and dim. Black holes, those last bastions of mystery, slowly evaporate like dying embers. In the end, only a sparse soup of particles remains, floating in an endless night. This final silence is the universe's tomb. Heat dispersed, nothing left to change or illuminate. It is a vision of ultimate stillness, an apocalypse not of fire, but of frost, a slow and quiet extinguishing of all that complexity and life have built. All our ancient myths of rebirth and eternity pale before this stark thermodynamic decree, a one-way arrow of time that no god or hero can ultimately reverse. In the face of this inevitable decay, one might feel the deepest futility. What is the point of our struggles, our creations, if in the end even the stars die and time erases everything? Yet, confronted with this doomful trajectory, humanity has never simply resigned. Instead, we rebel. We take up torches against the encroaching dark. Every work of art, every scientific breakthrough, every child born is, in its way, a defiance of the cosmic decay, a spark thrown against the looming night. This defiant ambition is our Promethean impulse, named for the Titan who stole divine fire for mankind. In countless ways we strive to harness the fundamental forces of nature and bend them to our will. We split the atom to unleash power like miniature suns. We rewrite the code of life, even daring to rewrite the blueprints of life. We probe the secret of aging in hopes of conquering death itself, and imagine super-intelligent machines to solve problems beyond human frailty. We send our machines and probes across the solar system and imagine spreading life to other planets, to make ourselves a multi-world species, hoping that in doing so, we might outlive even our sun's eventual demise. Beneath it all is a bold hubristic hope that we might overcome our mortal limitations, outwit entropy, and perhaps even dictate our own evolution. There is a daring beauty in this human fire-stealing. It speaks of our refusal to go gentle into any good night. But it carries shadows of hubris too. In myth, Prometheus was punished for his overreach, bound to a rock and tortured for eternity by a vengeful god. And we cannot help but wonder what costs our modern endeavours may bring. Are we like Icarus, flying boldly upward on wings of wax, only to find the sun melting our cleverness and sending us tumbling down? We warm the planet with the byproducts of industry, tamper with ecosystems, and create technologies we barely understand. With each innovation we claim godlike power to reshape the world, yet each comes with unforeseen consequences that can slip from our grasp. It is as if we have lit a great bonfire to push back the darkness, only to find the flames casting troubling, flickering shadows on the walls around us. Some thinkers caution that we may not truly be masters of the technologies we summon. According to a kind of technological determinism, once a powerful tool or system is introduced, it develops its own momentum beyond our control. As the saying goes, we shape our tools, and then our tools shape us. Society is forced to adapt to technology's demands rather than the other way around. We invented the internet, and now it transforms how we think, work, and even form communities, changes we could not reverse if we tried. We built factories and engines, and in doing so altered the climate of our planet, a side effect now outpacing our ability to contain it. We teach machines to think on our behalf, and soon our lives are subtly guided by algorithms we scarcely understand. In a hard determinist view, our creations ultimately steer the course of civilization like an autonomous machine, while we race to keep up. We started out seeking to command nature, and end up commanded by the very devices and systems we've unleashed. As we grapple with controlling our destiny through knowledge and invention, another revolution has been happening in the realm of ideas. We have begun to question not just the content of our thoughts, but the very structures that hold our thoughts together. This is the realm of post-structuralism, a radical philosophy that took our earlier doubts about reality and pushed them even further. Post-structuralist thinkers tell us that the frameworks we use to understand the world, our languages, our ideologies, our categories of identity and knowledge, have no firm foundation. Every text, every belief system, every truth can be deconstructed, revealing contradictions and assumptions at its core. A statement as simple as, "I am free," can be unpicked. What do we mean by free? Free from what, and who defines it? Pull on that thread, and we find it connected to cultural assumptions, to language tricks, to hidden power dynamics. Keep pulling, and the entire tapestry of meaning unravels, leaving only questions in our hands. Meaning is not fixed, but endlessly deferred in a web of references and contexts. In this view, there is no final authority of reason or God or nature handing down a clear meaning for us to grasp. There are only narratives and power structures, each contingent and transient. Such ideas can be disorienting, even nihilistic. They imply that all that we take for solid knowledge is in fact fluid and shaped by who holds influence. Language, which we once trusted to describe reality, becomes suspect in its very bones. Words do not have inherent meaning. They are just symbols we negotiate with, often failing to capture the essence of what we wish to express. Think of how a simple word like love or freedom can mean vastly different things to different people, or how entire arguments can boil down to semantic confusion. Despite all our dictionaries and grammars, how often do we talk in circles or clash over definitions? We coin new terms, write endless explanations, and still find that words fail to capture the raw essence of reality. In a sense, language starts to look absurd, a game of whispers in which we pretend our terms are precise while they slip and slide under examination. We find ourselves almost laughing at the cosmic joke. Here we are, clever monkeys who have cracked the atom and mapped the genome, yet we fumble to communicate basic truths to one another. We write long treatises, build grand theories, only to discover that they might be built on the shifting sands of interpretation. It is absurd, and a little tragic. We are like the builders of Babel, our tongues confounded as we attempt to reach the heavens of understanding. The very tool that elevates us, that allows us to share knowledge, also ensnares us in misunderstanding. At this depth of reflection, one faces a choice. Despair that no universal meaning can be found, or embrace the freedom that comes with crafting meaning oneself. Looking at the debris of all structures and certainties we have dismantled, we feel both weightless and adrift. The universe careens toward heat death. Our lofty ambitions flicker under the burden of unintended consequences. Our truths and languages dissolve into ambiguity. What is left to hold on to? Perhaps nothing. Or perhaps, hidden beneath it all, there is something primal that still drives us. In the void of disintegrated meaning, one might suspect that raw will is all that remains. The simple urge to exist, to assert, to overcome. It may be a dark thought, that underneath our rationalizations and dreams lies only a blind striving. But after stripping away so many comforting veils, we are prepared to confront even this last naked idea. And so we turn to it, lighting a small flame in the darkness to examine it. The notion that at the heart of life, of reality itself, there is only a will to power, surging endlessly in the void. Section 6. We have peeled back the layers of meaning and illusion, and now we confront a final bristling truth. Perhaps at the base of all existence lies nothing but a raw striving. This is the will to power in its most radical form. The idea that every living thing, every force in the universe, is fundamentally driven to expand, to dominate, to assert itself. The philosopher who proposed it imagined even atoms reaching out with a kind of hunger. We see it in the sprout pushing through concrete toward the sun, in the lion staking out its territory, in the tycoon accumulating fortunes and influence. It is as if life itself is an endless will, seeking ever more power and expression. Under this lens, even the saint's humility, or the scholar's pursuit of truth, might be the will to power in disguise. Power attained through piety or knowledge, rather than brute force. We help others, perhaps, to feel our own strength in kindness. We seek knowledge to empower ourselves with understanding. We pursue love to possess and to feel important to someone. It is a cynical lens, stripping away our noble stories and reducing them to impulses for gain and growth. If this will to power truly throbs beneath everything, what does that say about the nature of existence? It paints the cosmos not as a place of harmony or inherent purpose, but as an arena of ceaseless contest, a battlefield of wills, great and small, the predator and prey, the conqueror and the fallen rival, the rising youth and the waning elder. All are playing out the same primal drama of striving. We picture the cosmos as a storm of wills, galaxies crashing together like great beasts, species emerging and devouring each other, even stars coalescing by gravity's pull. Each phenomenon a kind of striving. It is a wild, lawless panorama, with no judge but power itself. Creation and destruction would just be outcomes of that eternal struggle. Even the lofty search for meaning we have been engaged in could itself be seen as the will's attempt to impose order and significance on the chaos. There is something bleak about this prospect, a universe without ultimate good or evil, only shifting forces, each asserting themselves until they exhaust. Yet there is also a strange vitality to it. In a universe of pure will, perhaps creation and annihilation are just two faces of the same willful dance. Imagine a demon creeping up to you at midnight, whispering, "This life you now live, with every pain and every joy, you will have to live once more, and innumerable times more." How would you feel at that pronouncement? Terror? Outrage? Or perhaps a fierce affirmation? This is the spectre of eternal return. Envision time not as a line, but as a great wheel turning endlessly. All of this has happened before, and will happen again. Not once, but infinitely. Eternal recurrence of all things. Every choice you have made, you will make again. Every tear shed, every laugh shared, will echo. Every laugh shared will echo eternally through time. The universe might cycle through its birth and death, not just once, but forever, looping through the same events without end. It is a terrifying thought at first. In such a universe, each moment becomes at once insignificant, merely one turn in an infinite loop, and infinitely significant, for it will be repeated eternally. It means every pain is eternal, returning again and again. It also means every joy, no matter how fleeting, is woven into the fabric of forever. Nietzsche challenged us to consider this possibility. If one must live the same life over countless times, one should strive to live in such a way that one could embrace that repetition. At this late hour of our meditation, the idea of eternal recurrence tests us. It asks, can we say yes to our life, knowing it will recur endlessly? Can we affirm every moment, even the darkest, as necessary, and even beautiful in its own way. Initially we recoil. So many regrets and sorrows we wish would happen just once and be done. The thought of reliving them indefinitely is almost unbearable. But then, like a dim star appearing at the edge of night, a kind of acceptance begins to glimmer. If this is our fate, to tread the same paths over and over, then fighting it is futile. Better perhaps to learn to love it, to love our fate, amor fati, as some have called it, to embrace wholeheartedly all that is. In choosing this love of fate, we gain a curious kind of freedom, the freedom to say yes to every aspect of life. If it all must repeat, we decide that our joy will repeat with it. In this realization, a quiet peace finally settles. We feel, perhaps, like that mythic Sisyphus who learned to find contentment even as he forever pushed his boulder uphill. The task of living remains, but we now shoulder it with a lightness in our heart. It is not the naive peace of ignorance, nor the transient peace of a comforting illusion. It is a hard-won tranquility, wrung from the very heart of darkness we have explored. We see now that even if the universe is indifferent, even if life is a play of wills and endless repetitions, we have the power to choose our stance toward it. We can choose to say yes. Yes to the whole of it. The suffering and the wonder. The absurdity and the mystery. In doing so, we transform what could have been an eternal prison into something like an eternal home. The void that once made us tremble now merely inspires a solemn awe. An endless space in which we can wander without fear. In our acceptance, that vast emptiness turns into a kind of open freedom, a silent infinity where we can freely roam. Around us, the first hints of dawn begin to lighten the sky. The east is gently aglow, clouds painted in hushed hues of rose and gold. Faint birdsong accompanies the fading of the stars. We sit here, at the end of this long hour of the void, and we find that our heart is calm, almost light. The burdens of cosmic fear and doubt have been set down, left behind in the night. The questions that once raged have fallen silent, not because they are answered definitively, but because we have made peace with not having answers. In the gentle light of early morning, the world looks anew. Still the same world, still imbued with all its uncertainties, but somehow softer in outline. The dark night of contemplation has passed. We exhale, releasing a breath we hadn't realized we were holding. In its wake is a profound stillness. We take one more deep breath, feeling the cool air fill our lungs. Yes, the void remains. The universe will continue its silent drift, and many of our questions will go unanswered. But we are still here. We have our small flicker of consciousness, our capacity to love, to create meaning, to experience this strange and wondrous existence. That is enough. In this moment, it is enough. Thus, as dawn breaks, we conclude our hour of the void, not with a grand revelation, but with a gentle nod to the darkness and to the light alike. The quiet voice within us speaks one last time. All is well. In our eyes is a gentle shine of acceptance. On our lips, perhaps, a faint, knowing smile. See you next time.